questions you requested. This is JFAQ Japan's frequently asked questions. Oban week is over, and sadly that means my vacation is over. Nonetheless, I am back to making videos on JFAQ. We've got dating in Japan, this JFAQ, and the problems, I guess this is definitely a subjective video, as most of mine are, that I have seen myself with dating in Japan, how it goes wrong for mostly, I want to say, Japanese males. It sometimes have its problems for Japanese women as well, but stuff that makes it extremely difficult for both sides, and I don't know if it's necessarily fixes for it, but just problems that I see that if they could be somehow taken away or some sort of red tape could be removed, it could become easier possibly in Japan. So as a gaijin, your experience with dating will be very different than what the average Japanese male who grows up here experiences. I think I'll save that for another video. I can go through my own experiences of dating here. If you don't already know, if you haven't been a long time watcher of my videos, I myself came here single, dated for about 3 years or so, got married, and I have been a happily married man for the past 6 years now. Wow, time goes by fast. During the time that I was dating, this is the 3 years that I was dating when I first got here and was single, I did get quite a few different views of the male Japanese dating, of course, because of the bars that you would go to. Of course, when you'd go there, you'd first befriend guys, just talk it up, and then talk about girls, and then maybe eventually try to meet those girls at the bar. This could also be a club situation. It could even be, there is an area in Amemura, that's Amerikamura, American Village, translated literally. And that area had this place called Senkaku Koen, Triangle Park, and you could hang out there too. Just grab a beer at the konbini, sit there and meet a bunch of great Japanese friends. Very, very open crowd there. I highly recommend it for any of you who come to Japan and just want to find a cheap place to hang out, grab a beer or a drink, and just meet some cool Japanese people. Very, very open, very alternative-minded, very liberal-minded Japanese out there, very ready and willing to meet many a gaijin. During this time, this is where I got to really kind of observe and just kind of like sit back and watch. And one of the things that really struck me that was really amazing about the whole dating scene was there would be many a time where either they would ask right away if you had a girlfriend or if you had dated girls since you'd been to Japan, if myself or my friends that I was with at the time were like, well, yeah, dated around, got a girlfriend now, or have been seeing girls. They'd be like, can you teach me to meet Japanese girls? And I'd be like, is this guy messing with me? Is this guy pulling my leg? Is he effing with me here? What's going on, man? I had many a Japanese guy ask me that. Can you help me meet Japanese girls? And I'd just be like, sure. Like, I'm not gonna say no or laugh at them, because if they're being serious, then that would be really mean. So I'd be like, yeah, sure, what do you mean? Like, kind of holding back, like, are you serious? Are you asking me this? And they'd be like, all right, let's go to some bars and stuff, or let's go to some clubs, and like, let's talk them up. And pretty much what would end up happening is I would always have to be like the icebreaker, just get the conversation started. And the guy who would be with me, the Japanese guy, and this would be many different type of guys, many different type of styles, like everything from like heavy metal Japanese guys to the salaryman type, they would just sit there quietly and not talk and be like really nervous and really shy. And what I came to realize was it wasn't their fault at all. It totally wasn't their fault. It was more so the rigorous society they had been brought up with had never given them a chance to practice the skill of just talking to the opposite sex, the simple act of talking to the opposite sex. And you say, now Scott, I see them go through junior high school, I see them work with, secretaries, with salarymen, and other salary women paid at the same level as salary men, working together all the time. How do they not get a chance to talk? That doesn't make sense. Here's the thing. Almost all the times that they're going through these different levels of either education or career, they are bound to such a massive workload that unless they don't really care too much about passing these different workloads or these different entrance exams or tests that they have to take through multiple levels of education, they don't actually have time for, I don't want to say extracurricular activities because some can get away with some sports and clubs and stuff, but really activities outside or even inside of school that allow them a chance to interact with the opposite sex. And this goes for both women and men. There is not school dances. Maybe some schools have that. I'm sure there is an exception to the rule of everything that I'm saying right here. For example, there's Montessori schools that totally don't follow any sort of way that the rest of Japanese public schools teach. And of course, there's private schools that are very liberal and have an extremely interesting way of teaching. I knew one girl who told me about this extremely liberal, almost hippie-esque type private school she went to where you couldn't be late for school. It was impossible. You could just arrive at school at any time and just stay late enough to finish your studies. And that's in Japan. So, like I said, there's an exception to everything I'm saying. If you want to shout it out in the comments and be like, no, Scott, I know a school one time I heard this, and you're probably right. But I'm saying the general rule of public schools, the general system of government-ruled schools that are bringing people up through the system. They don't get a chance. They don't get a chance to talk to the opposite sex. Both sides don't get a chance to interact with each other. I remember my wife telling me about how she didn't really get even a chance to talk to boys until college because she said her workload, as far as what she had to study to pass her exams in high school, would keep her up till 3 a.m. studying. She said nobody that she knew had a boyfriend. Nobody had a boyfriend in her class. Because there just wasn't time for it. And the same exact thing goes for guys growing up. They don't sometimes have girlfriends because they just don't have time for it. Don't get me wrong, they have time for crushes, they have time to talk about girls and stuff like that with the other guy friends, whether in study groups and stuff like that, but there's not enough time for them to get a lot of this interaction between opposite sex. And that can really mess up either side's understanding of the opposite sex. That can mess up women's understanding of men and men's understanding of women. And I would meet these type of guys when we would hang out, and they would have a severe amount of trouble trying to break the ice and understand what it was they could talk to girls about. And there's also kind of an old school, I would say, patriarchy of men. I don't normally like to use that word, but in Japan there really is. Who kind of teach this sort of samurai way. And the samurai way, if you're brought up in an old school, very conservative family, is you don't make mistakes. Like, you're super stoic, you're super serious about what you do, you are super concentrated, and you do not make mistakes. If you do, you are just an utter failure. If you make a mistake in what you're going after, you just back out. You're just like, all right, well, that's it, I'm a fucking loser. Or if you're studying under a master, that's a chance for you to, like, say, an apology to your master. You are expected to be the apprentice at that point, and your master's allowed to yell at you like as much as he wants. He can put you through utter brutal, verbal abuse, and you're just supposed to stand there and take it. Well, here was the problem that would mess up guys with talking with girls when I'd see them. They would make one mistake talking, like make a joke that the girl wouldn't laugh at, or say something that maybe the girl didn't find overly interesting or something, or like he didn't notice her becoming interested, and he would just stop, he would just close up, he'd clam up, he'd stop talking, and I'd be like, dude, just keep going, just say anything, just say stupid stuff. Like, even if she doesn't like it, dude, who cares? There's other girls out there that will. Like, maybe you guys don't share, the same interests, but if you don't practice and try and get to know people, you'll never find out what anybody likes. You'll never find out what kind of things you have in common with any woman out there. So that was kind of the weird sort of way in which I saw dating be very difficult for some Japanese men in Japan. During my time dating in Japan, I'm sure there's a ton more I could elaborate on this subject. This subject could fork out into many a tangents, but that's for another JFAQ. And I think the way that would be best to go about that is if you, the commenter, gave me suggestions as to how you'd like to see this JFAQ branch out, different aspects, or different diverging pathways that the dating scene could have taken, whether talking to other girls and seeing what they look for in a guy, or talking to other guys and see what they look for in a woman, or their future expectations of any sort of marriage or long-term relationship, feel free to ask, guys. I'm unrested with the questions you requested. This is JFAQ, Japan's frequently asked questions. Have a good one.